Can Joe Biden remember, what's her name again? COVID relief stuck at the post office. Trump gets a historic foreign policy deal done. And white privilege training for nuclear scientists. Welcome, everybody, to the Buck Sexton Show. Honored to be here with you. It's going to feel a bit more like a Friday in the way that we do the show today because I'm out tomorrow, flying down to North Carolina, going to go see some friends, do some stuff, give a little talk, come out to the coast, have a few laughs. The East Coast, of course, North Carolina, but it should be a really good time down there. I'm looking forward to coming back with tales of traveling during the pandemic. Oh my gosh, Buck, you were on a plane. How are you still alive? I think it's all going to be okay, folks. You know, you just one foot before the other. You know, you lace up your shoes, you put on some pants, hopefully. A lot of days lately, I feel like I haven't really been putting pants on, just boxers, walking around the apartment. But you got to just keep going forward, keep moving. All right, we got a lot to get to today, and we've got some fantastic guests planned as well. But the thing that's really catching my eye at this point is the incredible and the furious, feverish rewriting of history from all the people in the media, and the Democrat Party, who are rewriting the history of Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, all of it, right? It's like we haven't seen anything. There's nothing about this that we already know. There's nothing that doesn't add up. It's just simply bizarre. I mean, a year ago, even Democrats could see that Biden was in cognitive decline. And the only people who wanted Kamala to be president were journos. Now they pretend none of that actually happened. It's almost impressive to watch the libs fake tears of joy for this ticket of political mediocrities. This is the ultimate version in politics of running the also-rans, running the people that never really get it done, not at the national level. I know you'd say, oh, Buck, but Biden's won his Senate race so many times. Look, Delaware is a lovely place, great beaches, very nice people. But politically, winning in Delaware is a little bit like being the governor of Rhode Island. You know, it's not. No one's going to clear the streets out and make way for the governor of Rhode Island. You know, anyway, you see what I'm saying. Kamala Harris won in California, won her Senate seat, but that's just being a machine. That's just being a cog in the Democrat machine, really. You know, it's only Democrats win there. So they get to just pick. And that's really what happened. So she had a relatively tight primary. I actually know her history a bit with this, but not impressive. I'm not impressed when you have been in public office in California and just sort of stay the course and eventually make your way up to being senator. As a Democrat, I think that's a lot of people do it who are not impressive at all. So we look at the big shot, the big race for the presidency, and Joe Biden, as you know. I mean, you go back a little bit in history and you very quickly find out that Joe Biden has a stunningly unimpressive record of trying to be president in the past, right? They have Biden, whose mental state has now become a point of fierce partisan discussion. It wasn't always so, as I told you, about a year ago. It was clear to a lot of journalists, including libs, who wanted other Democrat candidates to win, that Biden wasn't up for this. So they were willing to point it out then that Biden was past his prime. And for a man who's lived his entire life in the public eye, it's impossible to miss Biden's habit of saying things that are barely coherent and often absurd. Yeah, you know, I was there and Corn Pop came along and he was like, hey, man. And I was like, hey. And I was like, I got this chain and it's rusty and I'm going to wrap this chain around that pole and show you I'm tough. And Corn Pop was like, whoa. Look at how blonde your leg hairs are, man, from the sun bleaching them. That's crazy. Maybe some kids can touch your leg hairs because that's weird. Remember all that? We should break. We you know what, Producer Mark, we're going to have to start pulling the old Biden clips out. We got to have them ready. Almost like drops in radio, you know, when someone will play another one. Like that would be a drop that we could do. There should be drops from Biden's past. We could call it Biden dropping the ball or something. I mean, he's just not somebody that anybody would think should be in a role of greater responsibility and greater authority at this point. But Democrats are saying, oh, no, he is. In fact, there's a forced jubilation at this Harris-Biden ticket. And people are trying so hard to be like, oh, my gosh, Biden and Kamala, this is amazing. These are the ones we've been waiting for. Oh, my God. No, they don't really think so. While Biden was Obama's vice president, the weaknesses that he had were apparent, but it was far easier for the national media to cover them up or ignore them. The president, is a heartbeat away from the presidency, but as long as that heart keeps beating, the VP's mostly a walking, talking life insurance policy for the chief of the executive branch, right? Depending on the administration, we know the VP can be a real player in policy or be relegated to the ceremonial, not celebrated, to the ceremonial and the mundane. Nobody really remembers much in the way of accomplishments for Biden during his 8 years as vice president because there really weren't any. The most important part of his portfolio, Trump just got a big foreign policy victory today. Media is not going to celebrate it, though. But Biden was supposed to be a foreign policy guy. That was an unmitigated disaster for both of Obama's terms. The Obama team, they picked Biden as VP because of his decades in the Senate handling foreign affairs. And all that record shows, if you look at it, if you look at Biden's record, you see he was reliably, consistently, egregiously wrong on every major foreign policy question of the last 30 years. 36 years in the Senate, I think. Didn't make a difference. They didn't care. They're like, yeah, let's make him VP. Because, Obama had zero foreign policy experience. Let's not forget, Biden was also a long-time third, fourth tier finisher in presidential politics. His first attempt was back in 1988, right? The Soviet Union clung to its last gasps of global power then. The coolest gadget you could get was a Walkman. And if you were really cool like me, you had a Walkman that had a little thing on it you pressed that was no skip. Ooh, now I can walk. Now I can actually walk with my Walkman pretty fast and it won't skip. Biden's 1988 shot at the presidency was ignominious. It collapsed in accusations of resume inflation, speech plagiarism. He actually claimed to have marched in the civil rights movement, only to later admit, no, he hadn't actually marched in it. Fans of Biden politely call this tendency to make stuff up embellishments, my friends. Lies would be more accurate. Another one. Biden ran for president again in 2007. He was unable to get past fifth place in the Democrat primary. He dropped out. He was never able to get more than 1%. 1% of the primary vote, folks. 99% of Democrat primary voters back in 2007 were like, not that guy. He's a loser. Okay, this is reality. I'm not making up these numbers. These are all true. This is all real. His name in the polling then was right alongside bizarre curiosities in the Democrat field like Dennis Kucinich, a man whose biggest contribution was to talk like this real high. We're going to create a United States Department of Peace to work against the Pentagon. Yeah. Remember Kucinich? Biden was right alongside him. I went to a small event that was really easy to get into in D.C. just as a sheer curiosity. I was working at the CIA at the time. And I just got invited to some event where it was like a cocktail hour with presidential candidates, but it was the guys that weren't going to win and nobody cared. And it was Biden, Kucinich, and one or two other people that I can't even remember. Biden has always been a third-tier politician with a fourth-tier mind. But then the Obama team knew that they needed to add a little bit of foreign policy experience, a little bit of gravitas to that ticket. So now Joe Biden wants the top job again, and he actually might get it, which is quite a commentary on American politics. Despite the surge of socialists like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren back in the 2019 primary, we all know the Democrat faithful were told to go for Biden at the last minute, right? It was clear. We had candidates drop out. It was all orchestrated. The machinery of the DNC decided to get everybody in line. You need politicians who will do what the left wants while keeping Wall Street, Hollywood, the tech oligarchs, as Bernie calls it, happy. We all still know that Biden is the quintessential middling senator from Delaware, his clear limitations somehow failing this time around to limit his rise. And as we've seen, his campaign is going to be this very tightly scripted, stage-managed presentation. Biden from the basement in Delaware, always wearing a mask. Oh, I see all these journos standing alone. They've got the microphone in their hands out in an empty street. Got to wear a mask while they're doing their... Why would you do that? That's right. This is about signaling. Virtue and political signaling. It's solidarity with the lockdowners. Oh, but it's not political. No, now they're saying openly it is political. But back to who's supposed to be the most powerful figure in our politics. If Biden wins the presidency, my friends, he's going to be taking office at, 78 years of age? The guy's going to be 80 around the time of the midterms. In his first term, he's going to be almost 80 years old. Would 90 start to be an age at which people would question whether he's really up for this? For most of the opponents of Donald Trump, none of this matters, of course, because Biden is not Trump. And that's good enough. That's all it really takes. And they think he can win because they think they can fool voters in swing states, in the Midwest, the industrial heartland, and, Florida, a couple other places. Convince enough of those voters, come on, it's just Joe Biden, guys. He's a moderate. Oh, or in the case of Kamala Harris, a pragmatic moderate. That's the new, just a pragmatic moderate. Really? Senator from California. California is trying to make the Communist Manifesto come to life with every policy it passes every day now, and has been doing this for years. We're going to act like a Democrat senator from California in 2020 is anything other than, at best, a Trojan horse for a far-left socialist agenda, much more likely just an all-out assault alongside the socialist agenda. But none of this matters. Signs of Biden's cognitive decline, the lack of a meaningful political platform, the hyper-controlled campaign, that is a price the libs are willing to pay to get Trump out of office. There's also a widespread belief in political circles, one that Democrats won't say aloud for fear of scaring off independents and swing voters in key states. Biden is a Trojan horse candidate for the far left agenda. He is. For the agenda of AOC and the Democrat hardliners. His pick as for VP of Kamala Harris is obviously meant to placate the left wing of his base and the identity politics that now rule the Democrat Party, the most powerful force within Democrat politics. Oh, no, the first is abortion. The second is identity politics. Those are the only things that are truly sacred. It's all about control, abortion, identity politics, and the redistribution of wealth along social justice lines. Few will remember the predictions about the election in November that we make today, but observations can have a longer shelf life, right? And one that is difficult to avoid right now, no matter what your politics. It's the most straightforward observation of all. Joe Biden is not up for this. Even Democrats don't want Kamala Harris to be up for this, but the Democrat Party simply does not care. Can't believe we're losing our home that we never sold. That's what Deborah said when she found out she was the victim of home title theft, which is a crime that can actually cost you your home. Here's how it works. The bad guys find your information online, then they forge your signature stating you sold your home to them. You often won't find out about this until the eviction notice arrives. The usual identity theft services don't protect you from this, and the FBI is warning people that this is a crime on the rise. You need to take action today with Home Title Lock. Home Title Lock creates a virtual barrier around your home's title. Simply go to HomeTitleLock.com and use promo code BUCK for 30 free days of protection. You can also check to see if you're already a victim of this crime and don't even know it. Again, that's HomeTitleLock.com. Use promo code BUCK. You'll get 30 free days of protection. Go check it out now. And just in case you're wondering how close Kamala and Biden are now, The guy, it's going to be tough for him to even remember her name, to get it right. He's going to be like, oh, Kamala. Here you go. Play clip 1.
That's what I asked Kamala. I asked Kamala to be the last voice in the room.
It's his vice president, and he doesn't know how to. Now, her name is unusual. Because I thought this was so funny. CNN and Brad Stelter was really upset. I'm upset at Brad Stelter. I look like Zucker, so I have a TV show. Brian Stelter and the rest of the CNN moron squad. I actually think another one of their anchors, one of their interchangeable anchors, was going after Tucker on this too. And one of their people who's just paid to trash conservatives as though that's journalism. It's a pathetic life, but some people choose to lead it anyway. They were all pouncing. And actually, I think that's the proper. They were pouncing. Okay, they were, oh my gosh, because Tucker called her Kamala. I've heard plenty of people say it that way. And there's no, some people think of it more like potato, potato. You know what I mean? You say things different. Tomato, tomato. You say things different ways. It is Kamala. And they went after Tucker and said it was disrespectful. You see, every attack on Kamala, no matter how either true or not really an attack it is, they're going to say is disrespectful, because of sexism and racism. It doesn't matter what it is. Kamala Harris was a dishonest person about her time as district attorney in San Francisco, or as state attorney general in California, or whatever. And it's just racist, sexist, and like clockwork. Conservatives actually say in the last 24 hours, they've been saying, just wait, everything is going to be racist and sexist. And the libs are like, oh, yes, that's right. Everything is racist and sexist. They didn't even try to hide it. And the claim that Tucker mispronounced Kamala's name on purpose. When Trump calls it MSDNC, or MSLSD or whatever, the different, this is like very grade school stuff that we could all sit around and come up with, the Communist News Network, CNN. Yeah, I know. It's fun. I do it too sometimes, but, it's not exactly that clever. But that's clearly making fun of. When you say Kamala and it's Kamala, like this is just a normal, it's like spelling someone's name, named John without an H. People, I'm sorry. It's a busy world out there. I don't know that I'm always supposed to know whether you're John with an H or without an H. Pick one, everyone. Can we just pick one? Don't even get me started on Kristen and Kirsten. Okay, don't even get me started. But this was an honest mistake. One that is so honest that even Joe Biden, who has far less grounds to make this kind of mistake, made it the next day. I just think it's so funny. Oh, my gosh. The one thing I can promise you is that there's going to be some real entertainment value from watching people who take themselves so seriously and have been lecturing the country, or at least whatever audience they have, lecturing one 1,000th of 1% of the country, CNN, but, lecturing the country constantly about how we need more, we need adults in the room for our leaders, and then Joe Biden is basically going to walk onto the debate stage, in his boxers with mismatched socks and, a pair of overalls wrapped around his head because he can't figure out how to get them on. And they're going to be like, the greatest statesman of our generation, Joe Biden, everybody. Emperor Biden has no clothes, folks, except for the boxers and the mismatched socks.
Kamala Harris comes from the middle-of-the-road moderate wing of the Democratic Party, not the first choice of progressives, but Joe Biden banking that this historic move as the first woman of color on a national ticket will overcome that.
Middle of the road, little Stephanopoulos. I hope his paymasters over at ABC are, patting him on the head, writing him big checks to do what the DNC tells him to do. Oh, middle of the road, little Stephanopoulos says. Yeah, sure she is. Find me one middle of the road policy other than locking people up for a while in high crime cities was a popular position. Biden's taken in the past. Kamala's taken in the past. You see, here's what you need to understand about Democrats in general on law and order and on public safety. They're not unwilling to use the state's force to take away people's freedom. As we see, they're willing to do it even for, I don't know, opening up a gym or perhaps not wearing your mask enough, right? They're all about using the force of the state to get what they want. Whether they actually will enforce the laws, use that force to make sure that public safety and criminal justice are priorities, right, is all dependent upon whether or not it's popular among their Democrat constituents at that time. So I'm not saying that they're completely unwilling to ever have law and order, but right now the political wins within the Democrat Party are let people loot and riot a bit. Don't come down too hard on them. You know, we got to have a lot of hand-wringing over white privilege, and everyone has to be constantly, oh, I'm so sorry about being white, and it's terrible, and we're just oppressing everybody. And, you know, that's what the Democrat Party wants for the whole country, and that influences the way people think about criminal justice and law enforcement issues. You know, can cops really do their jobs, which is going to involve cops putting hands on people and arresting and putting cuffs on and taking away freedom from people, at least temporarily, who break laws? Do the cops have public support for that? Democrats right now are, a lot of them, the ones making decisions, I should add, not the ones who actually live in these neighborhoods. This is a key distinction. The Democrat apparatus is all in this white guilt mindset of, oh, law enforcement is somehow, because of the disproportionate impact, disproportionate number of arrests within the minority community, law enforcement is, let's blame the cops and let's pull back on law enforcement. When you actually go out and do some polling and talk to people, including our fellow Americans in poor parts of major cities, including black Americans who want to just go about their lives in security and safety and decency and respect, like all the rest of us. A solid majority of them, 81%, according to the most recent Gallup polling, we're saying we want as many cops in the neighborhood, maybe more. Either more or what we got. We don't want less. And the other 20%, I got to tell you, I think have just been so influenced by Democrat propaganda that they actually believe that cops are targeting them, and which is a shame. It's not true, but that's the mindset. So I blame the Democrat apparatus for spreading these lies. You know, I blame the Pelosi's and the Schumers and the Coopers and the Tappers and the Maddows and the New York Times, the Washington Post. They're the ones that are creating this perception that cops are the problem. But back to the way this is going to play out in this election, it's fascinating. You have Harris and Biden, who at different times in their careers were the Democrat equivalent of law and order candidates, which doesn't mean what it should. But they were the Democrat equivalent of that, and now they're running at a time when their party doesn't believe that the law should be enforced as it is, without a constant eye toward the balancing needs of social justice or whatever. But Democrats have in the past wanted more safety and security. Even the left realizes at some point, they're not there yet, but at some point the left realizes that when all the stores are being burned to the ground and when people don't feel safe and when people walk outside and there is a perception, these are the intangibles. This is what I try to bring you. One of the things I like to talk to you about from my perspective here in New York, because I'm in the middle of the largest city in the country. Some of you listening to this are also here, but a lot of you are, vast majority of you are all over the country, all over. We got people listening in all 50 states and countries all over the world. Not every country. That would be cool. I mean, Team Buck Turkmenistan in the house, but I don't know if we have anybody in Turkmenistan, but we got people listening in the UK and Canada and Ireland and South Korea and Afghanistan and Iraq. Thank you, military. Syria. Still one of my proudest moments on the show when a member of one of the SF teams came up to me and said they used to listen to this show as they were liberating Raqqa. That I'm not somebody who tears up over things that are happy or that are proud, that make me proud. That was the closest I've been in a very long time. Anyway, back to where was I on? Oh, yes. What I'm trying to tell you about the intangibles of being in a city is that you can tell when the criminal element, and there's a criminal element in every society. There are people who are damaged, who either choose evil or are so damaged themselves that their ability to discern good from evil is mixed at best. And when they feel like they have free reign on the streets or something closer to it, when they think that there's what you want is a society where people commit crimes and believe that they will be likely caught and punished. That's what you want to have. And there are countries where that is absolutely the case. And they have very low crime rates, and everybody realizes, and even some authoritarian regimes, if you talk to people about what it was like. I remember when I was in Tahrir Square, when there was all that tumult with the Muslim Brotherhood took over Egypt, and we had all kinds of problems going on. I was in Tahrir Square, and there were homeless encampments around it, and there was a real sense of menace on the streets. And I spoke to some of my Egyptian contacts there, some of my friends who were Cairo natives, and they were taking me around and showing me what was going on. And they just said, look, the old regime they were authoritarian thugs, but if you punched an American in the face, stole their wallet or their handbag and ran off with it, and you were a street criminal, you thought it was likely that you were going to get caught, and they were going to be rough with you when they caught you. And you did not want that. So that changed the perception. Once the Mubarak regime was gone and the Muslim Brotherhood had taken over, they said, oh, no, now it's like it feels more like a free-for-all on the streets. The criminals, the same criminals that were there before, have the belief that they'll likely get away with it. And that just creates a cascading effect. That was true in Cairo. It's true in New York as well. It's really it's a corollary to the broken windows theory. When people believe they can get away with little crimes, then they start to do enough of them that they feel a sense of the criminal element feels a sense of being empowered, and they're more likely to commit more serious crimes. You've already broken in and done a burglary. Maybe next you want to rob a bank, right? You've already been illegally selling. I don't know. You've already been illegally selling marijuana. Now is not really even a crime in New York. So I'm trying to think of what would be you're selling untaxed cigarettes. Maybe you decide to make your way up to selling a little bit of fentanyl on the side, or prescription drugs off label, off prescription, whatever, illegally. And that just, you filter that out through across the society, and you can see how everything starts to collapse. And I'm telling you, I walk around New York now, and everyone sees it, and there's news stories about it all the time. And when you're aware of people who and you can only see, when you're on the street, you can tell. All right, these things. In your neighborhood, people always have a sense. All beat cops that I've ever talked to in the past, and I have a beat cop in my family. I spent decades walking the streets of major cities. And they'll tell you that once you spend enough time in a place, you just kind of get to know something's not right here. Something's off. Something is and when you see individuals that you really can tell there's a sense of this is not, they have ill intent. It's one thing when they're trying to hide it. It's another thing if they're more brazen and open about it. And again, that cascading effect. And that's what you're seeing in these cities. And it's because stopping those smaller things, preventing those broken windows, requires the interaction between law enforcement and whoever is doing that, irrespective of social justice or a history of discrimination or anything else out there. It's just, you break the law, you do these things you're not supposed to do, there will be punishment for it. When that starts to fade, then all the other crimes start to become more pervasive. There's an increase in them. And all the literature will tell you this. This is just the reality around it. And this is what we're seeing right now. And Democrats, even like they call her Cop Kamala sometimes because she was such a law and order person in some instances for some things, also willing to abuse the powers of her office on behalf of Planned Parenthood. She was essentially like a paid hatchet woman for Planned Parenthood. Ooh, hatchet, Planned Parenthood, I know. Sorry. But that's what was going on there. But now the Democrats because of the mood of the apparatus of their party, put aside that they don't care really what's happening in these communities and what the people in the communities want, because of the mood of the Democrat Party, they won't actually do what is necessary to enforce these laws and restore greater order, to shut down the riots, to shut down the looting, and then just the day-to-day criminality, the day-to-day abuses and lawlessness on the streets that make everyone walk a little bit faster than they would want to, feel a little less safe than they should. Democrats can't walk away from that now. They won't.
Kamala, you've been an honorary Biden for quite some time. You know, I came first to know who Kamala was through our son, Beau Biden. They were friends. They served as attorneys general at the same time. They took on the same big fights together. Kamala in California, Beau here in Delaware. Big fights that helped change the entire country. I know how much Beau respected Kamala and her work. And that mattered a lot to me, to be honest with you, as I made this decision. So now we need to get to work, pulling this nation out of these crises we find ourselves in, getting our economy back on track, uniting this nation, and yes, winning the battle for the soul of America. My fellow Americans, now let me introduce to you, for the first time, your next Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
There's a lot that I would like the journos to check into about all of this. For one, the idea that Kamala Harris, the stories we've heard about the truly overt racism that she was subjected to, things like other children in her community weren't allowed to play with her when she was a child. And this was in Berkeley, California, in, what was it? I guess it would have been the 70s. I'm not saying she's lying. I'm just saying the press corps should look into some of this. We should verify more of it. Oh, but we know they're not going to. And on Joe Biden, I think it's worth noting here that Joe Biden has, and there are things that are beyond politics and the human tragedies that Joe Biden has suffered through, the personal tragedies, where he's lost family members in a car accident. He lost Beau Biden to brain cancer. Those are truly sad, and we pray for the departed. I mean, that's not a political thing. That said, Joe Biden also has a particular habit of, I'm sorry, I've seen it, I've heard it, talking about and even leveraging the personal tragedy for political purposes in a way that's really, sleazy used lawnmower salesman stuff. It is. He's pretty shameless about it sometimes. He still would cling for a long time to the story that his family members, his wife, and I believe his wife and child were killed in a car accident because the other driver was drunk. It's not true. That's not true. And I can tell you that and I believe the other driver wasn't even responsible for the accident. Yeah. So if you weren't responsible for an accident and somebody says that you were drunk and that you killed his family members, I think you'd be pretty horrified, and you'd be right to be. But it's a more powerful story, you see, if Biden changed around that narrative. Remember who these people really are. Remember who Joe Biden and Kamala Harris really are. Kamala Harris was willing to, in front of 15 or 20 million people watching, but also in front of a man's family, in front of Kavanaugh's wife and children, try to rip him apart and accuse him of being a gang rapist. Accuse him of being a gang rapist based on zero evidence and based on an allegation that only, and I mean this from the center of the truth wheelhouse. Only a moron could have believed that. So Kamala Harris is either a moron, which I don't believe, or she is a shameless, immoral person. who is ruthless and will do whatever she has to do in order to help Kamala Harris's pursuit of power. That I do believe. That I think completely lines up. And on this point, even about Beau Biden, who of his sons is the one who, was served in the military and people thought of as the heir to the Biden political legacy. And it's very sad. He died of brain cancer, and it's terrible. I think he served in Iraq. But to bring up Beau Biden as a connection to Kamala Harris, again, I don't know if that's an embellishment, which is what they say about the Biden record, but we're really to believe that the state attorney general in Delaware was working on a lot of the same challenges and really tight with the state attorney general in California? I mean, they might have met at like the attorneys general conference once or twice or something, but notice that there's this fabrication, or at least I think fabrication of narrative here that isn't necessarily rooted in the facts. And here's one of the problems we have to confront. The lies will come at you so fast and furious. There will be so much dishonesty around the Biden-Harris ticket that it would be difficult even for the most observant political analyst to be able to pick out the falsehoods. It's just going to be an avalanche of BS until Election Day. And the media, not only will they not be fact-checking it, they'll be with the shovels and the BS.